Man, what's the old adage? There's like three sides to every story: my side, your side, and the truth. Well, Carnival is going on the defense, offensively going on the defense. And it's left some people saying, well, is this Carnival lying about this controversial cruise topic? And look, there's some behaviors that happen on the cruise ship that some would consider disgusting, and others might actually pay for someone to do. It's a wild story. That, plus a whole lot more on today's episode. Let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your hostess with the mostest, your host with the most, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. And yeah, it's a cruise show. It's for your face. It's a Wednesday, the 2/1 of May 2025. And well, it's a story old as time, and whatever the rest of the lyrics to Beauty and the Beast are. It's a story old as time. It's a story that many folks have grappled with. It's a story about cruise ship gratuities and who gets the dang money. Look, the process in cruising right now is different than it was in the beginning. In the beginning, you used to just hand out money, or you put it in an envelope and give it to the people that you wanted to tip. And then somewhere along the way, the cruise line said, you know what? We can just automatically take your money. We'll make tipping easier for you. We will assign a daily gratuity and just, charge it to you, and then we'll divvy up the money. And it's in that divvying up the money where the questions come. There's been a post swirling around the internet about someone who is a former crew member, apparently not a former Carnival crew member, but a former crew member, that says pretty loudly that they do not get the money that the cruise line is taking from us. And there's been a lot of stories like that. I've also seen many comments from people in the know saying that the crew members do not get the money. And because that story's been swirling around, a lot of attention has been directed at Carnival Cruise Line to ask the very simple question, do the crew members get the money? And I guess enough of those questions hit Carnival Cruise Line that their spokesperson, brand ambassador John Heel, devoted a whole video today talking about what Carnival does with the money that they take from you that is labeled gratuity. And in his little video there, he says without a doubt that all of the money that is automatically extracted from the cruise passenger goes directly to crew members. And he breaks it down. He says that it goes to the room steward team, the room steward and his assistant. It goes to the main dining room team, the people that serve you dinner in the main dining room. It goes to the food workers that work on the Lido deck and in the buffet. And a small percentage of it go to people behind the scenes. And I think it's answers like that that really causes trepidation for people. What does that mean, people behind the scenes? Now, the post that's been making its way around that apparently wasn't a Carnival crew member is saying that the money not only goes to people behind the scenes, but it goes to fund other things like new initiatives and all that stuff. And so what I get from the big Carnival statement from John Heel today is they're saying clearly that, hey, the money's going to employees, it's going to crew members. It's not going to fund a new roller coaster or anything like that. Those are my words, not his. But he's just saying those people that he outlined there are all crew members, and those are the people that are getting the money. Now, what's wild is that's not new information. That information is listed on Carnival's website. That question has been asked and answered before, but still there's enough of a swirl out there in the world saying that that's not true. And so that's the interesting thing to me. Either the corporation, Carnival Corporation, through the mouthpiece of John Heel, is telling the truth, or they're not telling the truth. I believe them, okay? Maybe I'm a sucker. I believe them. I don't think you could make these grandiose statements about compensation without that being true, without being able to back it up. Now, maybe the fact that there is that little disclaimer that behind the scenes people get money, maybe that's an out in the legalese. I don't know. But I believe them. I believe that the money is going to the crew member. He did say also in the video that any money that you hand directly to a crew member, they are going to keep that money. It almost makes a case for just handing out money to crew members so you know exactly where, that's the problem with this system for me. I don't like the system anyways. It's wrought with challenges. On Carnival, particularly, you can double tip and not know it. You get a drink receipt, there's already a line of gratuity on there, and then they leave another line where you can double tip, and if you're not paying attention, you just think you're single tipping, but you're double tipping. The tipping on cruise ships is wrought with challenges. And, there's a big debate whether it's better to have those automatic gratuities removed and then just give money who you want to give money to. I've always felt like if you do that, then you are shorting the mystery people behind the scenes. And if that's part of their compensation, I don't want to be responsible for shorting somebody. And then somebody will come back and say, well, why is it up to you to make sure that people get paid correctly? And I'm like, well, that's a valid thing. Why am I worried about labor disputes on my cruise vacation? There's a lot baked into it. But the question at hand is, who's telling the truth? Do you believe John Hild when he says that only crew members get the tip money? I do. But what do you think? Leave a comment below. Seems like we've been talking lately about the dangers of cruise ports. But you know what else is dangerous? The internet. Specifically when it comes to your personal private internet data. Hackers, identity thieves, ne'er-do-wells. They're all trying to get at you through your personal internet data. Well, that's why I'm thankful for the sponsor of today's episode, Private Internet Access VPN. PIA VPN is an application that you use on your internet connected devices that encrypts your data to keep it away from prying eyes, keep it hidden. And there's a few reasons I really like PIA VPN. The big one is that you can get all of your devices protected for one low price. It's unlimited devices. They got 24/7 tech support. They've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. And they have a no-log policy. So not only are they protecting your data, they're not keeping any of your data. Of course, another thing I find myself using PIA VPN for is help with geofencing. Had a hankering to watch the first movie in the Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings. I went onto my Netflix at home and I noticed it wasn't there, but I did notice that you could watch Fellowship of the Rings if you were in Australia. And well, I fired up my PIA VPN. I chose a server in Australia, connected to Netflix, and was able to watch The Fellowship of the Rings. One ring to rule them all. Look, you can try PIA VPN for yourself at a discounted price. Click my link in the description to save 83% off of your subscription to PIA VPN. That equals about $2.03 a month, and you get 4 months absolutely free. Thank you, Private Internet Access VPN, for sponsoring today's episode. Cruise story number 2 is an interesting one, and one that kind of hits near and dear to my heart. I read the headline here and I thought something more was going on. This is a headline from Cruise Industry News. Viking prepared to return to Ukraine and Russia. And I was like, let's go. The Baltic cruise has been one of my bucket list cruises. And certainly because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, all of that has stopped. And it used to be a big part of cruising. And certainly you understand why it stopped. And there's a lot of things going on over there to unpack. But let's imagine that we live in a world where all of that is settled and all of that is cool and it's good for tourism again. I would love to go to that part of the world. And so would Viking, because apparently that was a big part of their profitability, going on cruises. Now, Viking's talking particularly about their river cruises. According to Torsten Hagen, the CEO of Viking, the trip between Moscow and St. Petersburg, he's saying that that's one of the nicest cruising journeys that you could take. And I would try it. But this article, again, it got me a little hyped for no reason. It says Viking prepared to return to Ukraine and Russia. They're basically saying if everything is cool, if everything chills out. So there's really no timetable there. But the big takeaway is that they've got ships ready to go. They've kept the ships in ship shape. They have 5 ships in Russia and 1 in Ukraine. And once everything is copacetic, they will do those itineraries again. Interesting headline, but I don't know that the story really does anything for me because there's no timetable other than the fact that if everything did get cool over there, then they could be ready to go. Is it someplace you want to go? Sometimes you mention, Russia or Ukraine or that part of the world. People are like, I don't want to go over there, but I think it would be great. I'd love to add that to the countries that I've visited. Now, I do want to circle back around to our cruise ship SpiderMan from the other day. Do you remember the man that tried to scale the mooring lines to the Carnival adventure there in the port of Sydney? Kind of the end of that story was him being lowered down into a police boat and becoming acquainted with the police. Well, now we know what the official charges are. They hit him with 3 charges. He got charged with entering a cleared zone without being screened and cleared. So that one's interesting. So maybe if he'd gone through passport control and got all of his documentation in a row, he could have climbed the lines. I don't think that's what that means, but it sounds like that's what it could mean. Number 2, entering a landside restricted zone without authorization. And 3, entering a waterside restricted zone without authorization. Carnival doesn't have much to say about this other than it's a law enforcement matter, and the gentleman was released on bail. So yeah, I don't know what'll happen. Maybe you think this guy will get, you think he should get jail time for this or some sort of fine, slap on the wrist? I don't really know how it works. Any of my Aussie friends down there, is he going to be in big trouble, or is this going to be one of those things where he kind of gets in a little trouble? In a wee bit of trouble. I don't know. The funny thing in the article that I read is the nickname they were using for him was not Cruise Ship SpiderMan, which I kind of like. They were calling him Tom Not Going to Cruise. Tom Not Going to Cruise, because he was doing stunts. Tom Cruise, get it? This story does take me back to, it's got to be the early 90s when I was an assistant manager for Burger King, home of the Whopper. I worked in East Nashville, and Burger King had an interesting scenario. If you were closing down the Burger King restaurant, you did stuff up to a point, and then you would lock a guy in your restaurant. We called him the porter. You would lock a guy in your restaurant, and he would do stuff like disassemble the broiler and clean it. He would clean out the fryers. He would clean out the hoods. He would, deck brush the floor, that kind of thing. And we used to have this guy, Jare, and we noticed that the work wasn't being done, but it was hard to comprehend whether or not, somebody would just stay in there. Like, was he sleeping? What was the deal? So we staked the place out. And we noticed that Jare was coming out of the top of the building and leaving. And then he was climbing back on top of the building and going back to work. So we had a ladder, and we had a roof access. So he would climb up the ladder, he would pop the roof hatch, he would climb down the building, and then he would climb back up. So we nicknamed him Spider Jare, and in classic, early 90s fashion, we wrote a parody song. It went, Spider Jare, leaves the building without a care. I think there was more to it, but that was the gist of it. This story tends to remind me of that. Also in that region of the world, there near Australia, we've got the island of Vanuatu. Devastating earthquake in Vanuatu back in December of 2024. Popular cruising destination. And while Carnival has said, hey, look, I know you guys are in recovery there. We're not going to go there right now. So they normally would go to Vanuatu to Port Vila using a tendering operation. And they said, look, instead of doing that on the itineraries where we have Port Vila, we are just going to stay at sea. So that's a tough thing. I remember I went to Cuba about a week after a hurricane. This is the time that Cuba was open to U.S. passengers, and they were really counting on U.S. tourism. And so they pulled stuff together quick after that disaster to get people in. So I got to assume that Vanuatu, they're excited to get people back. But it sounds like from Carnival's perspective, they don't feel like the Vanuatu is ready to receive cruise passengers. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how long these altered itineraries go forth. But as of right now, Carnival is not going to go there. Cruise story number 4. There's been a rumbling and grumbling in Juno, Alaska. A rumbling and grumbling about the amount of cruise passengers that are in that town on any given day. And there's been a groundswell movement to get a referendum on the ballot to limit how many cruisers can come to Juno. Well, Juno, what happened? They did not get enough signatures to get the referendum on the ballot. And so for as of right now, the groundswell movement in Juno, ineffective. They needed 2,720 signatures by May the 19th to get this on the ballot. That didn't happen, but last year they did get something on the ballot, same people organizing it. They got a petition for ship-free Saturdays. So the ship-free Saturday petition became a referendum on the ballot, but they didn't get that passed either. So it sounds like the people of Juno are not ready to limit all the people. Let me rephrase. It sounds like a majority of the people in Juno are not ready to limit cruise passengers. And of course, that's good for cruisers. It's good for the cruise industry, but certainly that means there's going to be some disappointed people in Juno when the cruise ships roll in. All right, I got to tell you about what some are calling disgusting cruise behavior, while others, I think, would approve of it. I'm going to show you a picture, but before I do that, let's take a break. Let's take a dance break. Get up. Get up. There you go, a dance break. Look, I've been collecting music lately, particularly vinyl records. Got a turntable, and man, I've gone on all these little paths of different kind of music that I've never really spent much time with. And over the last few days, I've been listening to the albums of Santana. I only own one. I own the first one, Santana, but I've listened to Santana, I've listened to Abraxas, I've watched the video of Santana at Woodstock, and I don't even know what to classify that music as, like a Latin jazz, a Latin rock. What I'm saying is I couldn't really find anything like that in Epidemic Sound today. I'll have to look again, but I did come across the song that I played, and I played it purely because I like the name, Sweep the Leg. Do you remember that? Sweep the Leg, Karate Kid. Sweep the leg, Johnny! Yeah! The kid that was so happy when Daniel LaRusso's leg almost got broke. Did you dance? You can dance if you want to. If you don't, nobody will. All right, here's the picture. This is someone on a cruise ship, and that is their barefoot. I found this posted on a Facebook group, and the comments on the Facebook group were pretty interesting. A lot of people were saying, this is disgusting, that when you are on a cruise ship in a public place, you should not be barefooted, or you shouldn't have your bare feet on the furniture. And then there was a whole nother segment that say that the people in the Facebook group that I was on have a foot fetish. This picture and the responses to this picture really raises two questions for me. Number one, what is the protocol? Is it okay to put your bare feet on furniture in public spaces, particularly cruise ship public spaces? And number two, should people be able to sell pictures of their feet to other cruisers that are interested? Or does that violate some sort of solicitation thing on a cruise ship? Like, everybody's out there with a side hustle. They're just trying to make that bag. Am I right? Sell pictures of your feet. I'm sure there's going to be some foot person out there that wants them. The big question for the day is this, and this is a question I asked to a lot of people, and it's a music related question. If you could see any band in their original lineup that you can't see now, what would it be? My answer is always goes like the Beatles, Queen, The Doors, Zeppelin. You know, I'm going to go with a flyer here. I'm going to add NXS to that. I would love to see the original lineup of NXS doing that nice 1989 Never Tear Us Apart, but it's not possible. So yeah, I'll leave some choices down in the comments, and please participate in the show and add your answer. Thanks again, PIA VPN, for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you check this video out next. YouTube doesn't think you've seen it, have you? Some people say they have. Also, you see our picture there? You can subscribe for more. Stay up to date with everything going on in cruising. Hit that subscribe. Thank you so much for watching the show. Tony for La Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.